Alrighty, we are talking about Scientism. So, we have this posted in announcements. It says... Okay, so you've seen this. I have a neighbor who has this on his house, a couple doors down. And you've probably seen it before, maybe on a bumper sticker or whatever. Facts matter, science matters, Earth matters. So, one sometimes finds a slogan like this on car bumpers. The statement's intended meaning must be beyond the surface. Why is that? Well, facts matter. No kidding, right? If the oil in your vehicle goes below the minimum threshold on your stick, then you need to add oil, right? That's a fact that does matter, right? There are other facts that matter we could talk about too, right? If you put a penny on your tire and the tread doesn't even make it up to the head of Abraham Lincoln, okay, we got a problem, right? Your tread is too low. Your tread is too low. You need to replace your tires. That's a fact that really does matter, right? How many facts do we want to mention that matter? Does anybody not believe that facts matter? Anybody? I didn't think so. Okay, so yeah, we got that. Facts matter. Yep, total agreement there. Science matters. Okay. Well, if the science goes wrong, we could just stick with our analogy here simply with a car, right? What if the science behind the engineering for your ABS on your car wasn't done correctly? Does that matter? Yeah, that matters a lot, right? Okay, how about on your iPhone? The science behind that. Well, hey, they've just come out with graphene batteries. Is that cool or what? Instead of like graphite, which is three-dimensional, has several layers, multi-dimensional. Well, now there's a graphene battery where they figured out how to do it, where it's just one layer of graphite, not several, in different formats. You put two of those layers together, it's bulletproof, literally. And it's the best conductor we know for electricity and for heat. So that means with the new graphene battery, which you're going to be able to get in your iPhone or whatever, in another year or two, they already make it. There's already a device you can buy with it, a memory device. A battery device for your charging up your other devices. You can already buy it now. Well, anyway, I forget exactly what the stats are, but it's something like, you're going to charge it a whole lot faster and it's going to last a whole lot longer. Is that based on science? Yeah? Okay. If you're going to simply go to the dentist, you're going to get your teeth worked on. What about just the anesthesia so that you're not screaming your head off, right? Does that science matter? Is that science? The study of anesthesia? Yeah. Okay, so does anybody here disagree with the statement science matters? Does anybody say, no, science does not matter? I am a science denier. If you are, just raise your hand. Don't be ashamed. I'm for open dialogue and for people to feel free to express their views, and then if they're not so sound, well, good. Because they got expressed, they have more opportunity to kind of think through it with others. Good for all of us, Maybe they want to say something crazy just to challenge us to have to defend what we all know is true, but don't really quite know how to go about defending it. So really, seriously, raise your hand. No, science does not matter. Come on, raise your hands, everybody. Oh my gosh, none. What do you know? Okay, so yeah, I think we all agree that science matters. Okay, how about Earth matters? And again, I don't want anybody to be ashamed. But if it's sort of like, no, I don't think the Earth matters at all. Earth does not matter. I don't care anything about the Earth. Nothing about the Earth matters. If the ozone layer disappears and we all suffer from radiation or the heat is no longer trapped within so that we freeze to death or whatever, I don't care about the Earth. I don't want you to feel ashamed, okay? We're among friends. Just raise your hand. Nobody? Come on, don't be shy. Okay, so I don't really need to belabor this point, right? The meaning to this statement must be something other than what is on the surface, because it seems we have 100% agreement here that, yes, facts matter, yes, science matters, yes, Earth matters. So why is this slogan stuck on the back of cars and neighbors putting them in their, like my neighbor does a couple doors down, has them like these sorts of things plastered all over his yard? What's the point here? Because nobody disagrees. There must be something else, right? Well, what is that something else? We can only speculate. So maybe the slogan here imagines a foolish and deplorable group of people to whom facts, science, and Earth mean nothing, while another group of diligent and conscientious people care deeply for facts, science, and Earth. I mean, that sounds really noble, and it can make you feel good about yourself, doesn't it? I, for one, sir, madam, believe that facts and science and Earth do matter. Very much, as a matter of fact, thank you. I mean, that gives me kind of the self-righteous feeling of being a good person, even though I don't know actually anybody who denies anything that I just said, right? But it does make you feel good about yourself. Maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know. Okay, these factually and scientifically minded people might even be the saviors of planet Earth. Perhaps this is where this is going. On this interpretation, we have sinners and saints. Only the latter possess the way leading to salvation. That is, science, as the true religion. Scientism and technocracy. All right, so that's the subject here for today is scientism for this journal entry. And scientism, what is that? Well, we all agree that science is great and we need it and we celebrate it and learn of it what we can and promote it, and that's fantastic. So many good things. Well, of course, some not so good things too. It does need to be held in check, right? So, I mean, we can't thank the science for the atom bomb, right? Dropped on Hiroshima, and that wasn't a pretty picture. Well, a lot of people then went into postmodernism after that. From modernism, there was the celebration of science. We are going to bring about a utopia, basically. We are going to solve hunger. The world on poverty is going to end all this. And so no more poverty, no more wars. We're going to have the war to end all wars. That was supposed to be World War I, right? No more war, no more poverty. So, you had this modernism notion that was packing in scientism as well. But after World War I with the nerve gas and the most hideous war we'd ever seen, right? And then World War II, which beats that. And finally, ending it with the bomb on Hiroshima. It's like, wow. So a lot of people then did become hostile to science, thinking, hey, modernism, your faith in reason, you're claiming to end poverty and end war. No, it hasn't ended well at all. This picture is not like you painted it at all. This is awful. So a lot of people would have a negative attitude against science, blaming science, right? Rather than blaming the misuse of science, right? So I mean, you can see the same sort of thing with like weapons, right? So we have guns, right? Well, aren't you glad that we have a police department here where they have guns, right? Are there not some people who have used guns as a means of their eating? Have there not been people who have used guns in the defense of others, of the innocent, right? Well, it's, it kind of depends on who's using the gun, in what way. It's not the gun that we send to prison, right? It's the person that misused the gun, right? So it's a tool. It could be a wonderful tool, or it could be a really awful tool. Okay, so too with science. It can be a wonderful tool. Simply going to the dentist, we're thankful for it, right? It can be a really hideous tool. nerve gas or the atom bomb, right? So there was a backlash that did have an anti-scientific attitude after, especially World War I, against modernism and this unbridled faith in science and reason generally. So we still have that aspect active. But anyway, this scientism, it conflates science with scientism, which is science done as a religion or like we talked about last week, sort of a cult. We heard the religious overtones in what I just said, right? With science applied to citizens, we will end poverty, we will end war. So that's the movement called Technocracy. That was big starting in 1932, and still it's very big right now. Very big. So Technocracy, you have the, you're using science, but with real religious overtones. Basically, the salvation of the world. We are going to save the planet. We are going to save people. No more war. No more poverty. Do I hear a glory or an amen? Right? Somebody feel like running? Somebody need to run? No? You get what I'm saying? It's science being used in a very religious-like way, which isn't science. So that's scientism. And you have packed into this the informal fallacy of the appeal to authority. So we've talked about informal fallacies, where we have fallacies of relevance, where you're stating reasons for something, but your reasons don't support the conclusion at all, actually. So the appeal to pity, right? So you have to believe X. Why do I have to believe X? Well, because so-and-so is in a lot of pain. And so if you don't believe in X, well, then you're insulting that person and making that person feel even worse. You care about this person who's in this pain, right? Okay, well, then you too believe X, right? You know what I'm saying? So we talked about this last week, but just in general, maybe you have somebody making your argument for you who is somebody that anybody with any heart should feel for and care for and not want to argue with and not want to increase their pain in any way. Because you see, if you have a person like that stating the position you want defended, well, nobody can argue with them because they're in this pitiful condition. And so the conclusion is, well, you must agree with them. Because if you don't agree with them, you're a really mean, bad person. Right? So you just shut your mouth or you just say you agree when actually you don't. Does that make sense? So the appeal to pity. Well, in this case, we're talking about the appeal to authority. So what is that? Well, you have somebody who is an authority. So, for example, back in the 80s, I enjoyed listening to Carl Sagan, brilliant cosmologist, astronomer, physicist. So when he's talking in his field, well, you got a lot to learn. It's just, incalculable the amount you can learn there. So amazing. Great videos, right? Okay, but then he'd often veer off into the area of ethics. And he'd be talking about things that are just utterly beyond his expertise. And, I was simply a graduate school student back then, and listening to that, I would think, my gosh, so far anyway, I've read quite a bit of Aristotle and, the Nicomachean Ethics and whatever, and boy, has he even read this stuff? Because he's making some really shoddy arguments that if anybody made this just simply in graduate school, they'd be chewed up and spit out real quick. But yet he's an authority in one area, and so you take that clout and apply it to this other area that he's not an authority in at all. But it's a good trick, you know. Have somebody as a spokesman for you, who's a spokesman in one area, an authority that you should appeal to. We all need to learn from authorities, right? That's great. Except the problem is here they're talking about something utterly outside of their expertise, maybe even in an area where there actually isn't expertise at all. And that clout is applied, and people fall for it. It's just a trick, a way to get people to agree with something, when actually the reasons, or in this case the authority that you're using to supply clout for this topic that they're talking about, shouldn't be applied at all because there's no authority in this topic. So that's the appeal to authority. That's an informal fallacy. So when you use science, with this informal fallacy, and then apply it to matters of how we should live, how we should govern, that's called technocracy. So I recommend you look that up. And more broadly, that is scientism. Science as a religion. Or as politics. Now, the final aspect to this scientism, the abuse of science, resides philosophically on this claim. And I want you to think about what the problem is with this claim. And I'm telling you, this isn't a matter of opinion. This is a matter of language and logic. There's a real serious problem with what I'm about to say. And probably because you've heard it so often, and it's just kind of part of our culture, you probably aren't going to get this at all. And I'm not blaming you for it. But here it goes. If you can't show something to be true by science, empirically and or analytically, like logic or math, well then what you're talking about makes no sense at all. It's not even that it's false. It's just that it has no meaning. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, that makes sense. Actually, I happen to agree with that. But here I am saying, as a matter of fact, there's a serious problem with that statement. Do you maybe know what it is? Well, you have to ask yourself this question. Can that statement live up to itself? If you can't show something to be true empirically, or by the sense experience, or the scientific method, or analytically, logic or math. So we'll just say for short, if you can't show something to be true by science, well then what you're talking about makes no sense at all. It's meaningless. You see what I'm saying? Why that's a serious problem? Oh, okay. So let's run your statement by that, okay? Your statement that you just made. Would you please show me that to be true mathematically? Go ahead. Pull out your calculator. I'll give you a few minutes. Is your calculator going to do you any good? No? Huh. Okay, well, logically then. Just go ahead and write it up here on the board. We're talking about the 9 rules of inference that you're going to learn. Modus ponens, modus tollens, hypothetical syllogism, constructive dilemma, whatever. Go ahead and use those. Just go ahead and prove it right up here. Deductively. Oh, you can't do that? Oh, okay. Well, inductively then. Can you prove that inductively? So how about it by experience? Can you prove that to be true by experience? Just go ahead, pull out your test tube. You need a test tube on this one? Is this a matter of chemistry or biology or physics? Is your telescope going to help here? No. You see, the statement itself is not a scientific statement. So, by your own criterion, by the way, this is called verificationism. So by your own criterion of verificationism, for whether or not a statement makes sense, your statement itself is meaningless. Because you can't show that statement to be true by science. It's not a scientific statement. So that's a very serious problem with scientism, relying often on that verificationism. But then it actually kind of gets dangerous, because when you're saying what we need to do then is, because the only ones who can know truth, the philosopher kings in Plato's Republic, really are the scientists. And they have expertise in their fields, so we need them to be running our government, to decide what our cities should live like, how we should live. Because they're the experts, right? They're the authority. So you see the appeal to authority going on. Yeah, that's true. They are an authority in physics, in chemistry. No, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want them to undermine our, republic, constitutional form of government, representative government, in telling us, apart from our established forms of government and justice, how it is that everybody is going to live. And then applying their technology in order to ensure that everyone is living the way that the experts say that you're supposed to live. So that's why it's called technocracy. It's applying technology in order to control the masses in a way that undermines representative government. So you could even see this movement as a religion as being quite dangerous. And you could look at plenty of forms of government in the 19th century who very much followed this path. They were fantastic in science. But then they took their science and their technology of their day and applied that to their government in ruling their citizens and then in ruling others. So you know what, there's a movie I want to watch. It's called Upgrade. Has anybody seen that yet? Some sci-fi thriller movie, Upgrade. Well, anyway, it's the idea that you've heard of transhumanism, and the idea, which is not so far off at all. Well, in some ways, it's already here, where you apply technology to humanness. So the name of your book here is the Art of Being Human, right? Okay, well, that's saying it's the art of being human. Well, what about the science of being human? So with technocracy comes an anthropology, which is a philosophy of humanness. So this has everything to do with the humanities. Traditionally with the humanities, the human is, well, for the Stoics, a spark of the divine. So everybody is like a little god. In other words, something transcending the natural order. So that, you see, you have your laptop out, right? So if I were to take a hammer and smash it, the thing that would be unethical about it wouldn't really be like I hurt your keys and your circuitry. It would be that I assaulted your property, which in effect is assaulting you, right? So it's not the calculator, the computer, who has been violated here. Sure, I smashed it, but in terms of ethics and justice, my violation of your property is a violation of your human rights. But what if actually you are nothing but a bucket of parts? Very sophisticated one, but like a computer. So here's your computer. Well, now computers keep getting more and more sophisticated, right? Well, maybe at some point, if consciousness is an emergent property, simply of a bucket of parts, so to speak, a mechanical device, well, who knows? Maybe with your computer being so sophisticated, and in conjunction with other computers through the internet, my gosh, maybe the internet itself is a god. Conscious. So one of the chief engineers of Google's project, somebody asked him, I forget his name, somebody asked him, does God exist? And his answer was, not quite yet. And he's totally serious. He has an organized, established religion on technology. That artificial intelligence is getting to the point of the singularity. You should look that up. And look up Kurzweil. He talks about that. That it gets to the point where technology becomes conscious. So that, let's say this computer was a part of that. So if I smash your computer now, okay, now I have violated the computer itself, right? The computer itself is an object with sufficient complexity, having consciousness as an emergent property, thus it has rights. Okay? Well, how about then with you? Are you any different? So with typically the anthropology going along with scientism, really what you're doing here now is philosophy, but you have the clout of being a scientist who's doing it, so you kind of get this informal fallacy applied over, like people then believe it. So, what if you have a scientist saying this? You're just a bunch of neurons, just chemical electro firings. You're just a really sophisticated computer, that's all you are. Well, if I were to throw that computer against the wall and smash its parts around, it's like, what a headache. Like, oh my gosh, now we've got to clean up the mess, and, there's some money involved here, and, probably maybe you have to buy a new one or find out what parts need to be replaced and just replace them, And now, is that the attitude you take if somebody does that to another human? Why not? It's just a bucket of parts. Matter of fact, maybe it's a very bad bucket of parts. I mean, we're told that the earth is going to end. We were told that by AOC 12 years ago, right? And lots of political figures. Okay, that means now it's only 11 years. So if you don't enact their policies in 11 years, it's irredeemable. The world is over. Uninhabitable. We all die. In 11 years. Correct? Anybody hear that? Right? Okay, so who's the problem with global warming? So not humans? So now we're into this territory of eco-terrorists built on Malthusian philosophy. The idea that, hey, well, you'll hear politicians saying it right now. You shouldn't be having children. Or if you do, like one or two, period. This is coming out now from our politicians. And the world over. So let's say that, you start seeing how we're combining this philosophy now, right? Technocracy, science is all that matters. They need to be the authorities. Whatever they say is what we need to listen to. And so what they're saying is, okay, the world's going to end in 11 years. The main problem is humans. And then you have artificial intelligence who's going to be, in a matter of, within literally like 10 years, so they say, they're going to be as smart as us, if not a lot smarter. Right now, let alone chess, let alone checkers, Okay, I forget this Chinese game where you have like 9 levels going on all at the same time. You better remember it. And you know what I'm talking about. And they had it. They had the best players in the world of this game, far more complicated than chess or checkers. And they had all the best players, many of the best players of the world, all at the same time competing with the computer. And the computer soundly beat them all at the same time. So you have this kind of intelligence that's going to be deciding. I mean, at some point, the worry is, and we're talking about from, chief physicists here who will talk about this. Okay, I'm breaking. Oh my gosh, I'm getting old. The physicist who recently passed away, Hawking's, right? Stephen Hawking's. So yeah, he said that we're coming to the point where perhaps, well, I think he said, as a matter of fact, it's going to happen. Artificial intelligence will take us over. He's not talking about this cool Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that he saw decades ago. No, he's saying, as a matter of fact, this is going to happen. So if you think strictly logically, and humans are simply buckets of parts, and you've already programmed into the artificial intelligence, what matters is reducing stress on the earth, let's say, and we're the main culprits, what do you think artificial intelligence might think about us? Humans are the problem. Eradicate them. Simply have robots controlling the earth. So this sounds like wacko science fiction talk, some science fiction horror thing, right? But no, people in transhumanism and in artificial intelligence are talking about these things dead seriously. Not for like sci-fi nerds. So you can see how if you throw away traditional notions of humanness, where do you have the talk of human rights? Humans have rights. Oh, really? What do you mean by a right? Well, it has to do with social justice. Oh, what's that? So I'm your android here. Talk to me. Prove to me your notion of human rights, would you please? I understand zeros and ones. Go ahead, write me code. I'd like to understand. You going to do it? You need to show me scientifically now. I don't want to hear about your Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics. I don't want to hear any about your religion and being in God's image and rights being transcendent properties. I don't want to hear about your constitution or political philosophy saying we are endowed with these inalienable rights, by God, established, existing, beyond space-time. No, I know of no such thing. Good luck proving your human rights concept. So when you just have pure logic, whose criterion is no data other than that which can be scientifically shown, you can see why perhaps it makes a lot of sense with those parameters to, with scientism, to enter technocracy, to where you will establish artificial intelligence as the superior intelligence to make decisions about how all we should live, individually and as a society. Welcome to the brave new world.